there's a writer that I like a lot, Italo Calvino, and one of his lectures, he was talking about artists confronting the horrors, the really awful things in life. And he used the story of Perseus and Medusa, which I remember when I was a kid. I think a lot of kids, read those stories, but I was really fascinated by that story. Um, but now Calvino's started the ball rolling with talking about how artists can sometimes look too closely at the Medusa, like people who are sensitive. If we can freeze up, we become heavy, we become like stone at gazing too directly at whatever these horrors are. What his rendition of that reminded me is that Perseus had to look at that horror, but not directly. And the way that he did that, and again, I remember reading this part as a kid and being really, it was the scariest part of the story. Uh, and I don't know if you remember, but he basically took his shield and rather than use it as a shield in front of himself, he held it aside and used it like a mirror to be able to look at the Medusa that way, which of course is a metaphor for artists. What else do we do except make ourselves vulnerable? I remember when JFK was assassinated in November of '63. And I remember it because I was actually sick at home with the mumps from school. And I was, in bed for a week, and there was like one of these early, little portable TVs there. And I saw it all go down. And then just a few months later, I also remember the Beatles being on TV. And there was a lot of talk about how the Beatles sort of came along at a time when people were looking for healing. Again, another story like when the airliner that was crippled and it crashed into the Hudson River a number of years ago, and the captain of that plane was given great acclaim because he landed the plane safely, which he should be. That was great. But the other part of that story was that the hundred and so people that were on there all got off safely and onto the wings because all 103 of them cooperated and helped them all, all got through the door and they didn't fight over who was going to get out first. Otherwise, it would have been a story where the plane crashed, he landed it safely, and only 5 people got out because everyone was fighting to get to the door. So I hope that art is created and perceived in these times in ways that really talk about our group health and not just individual health.